Greetings, fellow snowflakes. Looks like I made a fool of myself by saying I'm not going to do any more videos, and then I'm still making videos. But you know what? A week ago, when it was Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I was socialising with some of my transgender friends, I realised that I shouldn't be so swift to silence myself. When transgender women are getting murdered at horrifying rates, and committing suicide too, I think it's important that we don't silence ourselves. So a big fuck you to the haters, and yeah, I'm here to stay, motherfuckers. And I've done some thinking about what I'm really trying to do, who my audience is, and why it is that I even make videos. And you know what? I don't really want to pick fights with anyone. Picking fights with radical feminists or the feelings don't count ignoramuses is pretty pointless, really. They don't fight fair, and many of the things they say, the sharp stick in an open wound that I talked about, it's not worth the toll on my mental health to invite that sort of abuse. So no, I'm not really doing this to fight transphobes. Fun and tempting though it seems to go on the warpath, or amusingly give people a taste of their own medicine by misgendering TERFs or calling anti-feminists special snowflakes, it quickly backfires because you're dealing with people who really don't care whose feelings they hurt. And I'm not really trying to change anybody's minds. I used to have a naive hope of doing so, but if internet discourse has taught me anything, it's that you really can't change anyone's mind about anything. So what's the point? But you know what I do think is important, and what I should keep doing? Trying to counter the arguments of the haters for the sake of my own people. Some of my transgender sisters, brothers and siblings might be even more closeted and vulnerable than I am, as unlikely as that sounds, and like I said, suicides happen at alarming rates. It's no joking matter when people spread lies and misinformation. So this is not for TERFs. This is for those of my transgender sisters who find themselves attracted to women, but despair of ever finding the kinds of relationships that they need. The problem is not lesbians who don't want sexual encounters with people who still have a penis. Everyone has the right to refuse sexual contact with someone for whatever reason. To suggest anything else is indeed rapey. You don't do cock? Fine. Even if the person with a penis doesn't like it touched and does not mean to do anything sexual with that part of their body, fine, whatever. Say sorry I can't and move on. It's fine. People have all sorts of preferences. I might be nervous about entering into a sexual relationship with people who might not accept me for who I am. So this might mean Christian women, certain kinds of radical feminists, or all but the most flexible of straight women might be off the menu for me. That's my choice, and no one should force me otherwise. If I find someone so physically or personally revolting that the thought of getting sexual with them makes me throw up in my mouth a little, then fine. No one should be shamed or pressured into sexual contact with someone. So you don't do dick? That's okay. What is a problem is when they say things like, no lesbian will ever want to sleep with someone with a penis. Because when you state that there are women who identify as lesbian who are attracted to pre-op trans women, they will say, oh, but they're not really lesbian. Well, they identify as lesbian and are not attracted to men, so your original statement is misleading. When someone who is very vulnerable, prone to internalised transphobia and struggling with a lot of negative feelings about themselves hears that phrase, no lesbian will ever want to sleep with someone with a penis, they hear that as a choice of be alone forever or sleep with straight women who want and expect you to be a man. And people commit suicide over this stuff, so it's no joking matter. So, to my transgender sisters, do not despair. Firstly, there are bisexual women. They exist. Secondly, there are straight women who may be flexible enough to accommodate your transgender needs. But thirdly, there are indeed women who consider themselves to be lesbian, who will accept pre-op and even pre-HRT trans women as women and be willing to have sexual encounters with them. I know this from my own experience. There are women who consider themselves to be lesbian who will even happily allow you to include your penis in sexual play if that is something that appeals to you. My girlfriend even said that she's been fucked by a trans woman before. She says lesbians use strap-ons all the time and that she actually prefers a trans woman expressing herself sexually than using something impersonal like a strap-on. It's actually me who has more of a problem with that, who gets head-fucked about it because the mere thought of me penetrating her feels too male or too hetero, and so triggers my dysphoria. but I like to be touched or pleasured orally, and that is also something she's okay with. Oh, and by the way, she has told me now that she doesn't mind me discussing our relationship on YouTube. Again, something I was more concerned about than she was. Do not despair. You can absolutely have a fulfilling sexual relationship with someone female without being pressured or expected to be something you are not. There are women, cisgender women, who can accept you as a woman, overlook your physical failings. You can be seen as accepted as a woman in sexual play. There will be no pressure to play any kind of conventionally male role. They'll honour your image and conception of yourself as female, use female words, pronouns and names of you, even encourage and support you in identifying as a lesbian woman. Intercourse will not be an essential part of sexual activity like it sadly so often is with straight women, so if you're uncomfortable about that, don't despair. You won't be shamed or pressured to perform that act, which is something sometimes very difficult for trans women. They won't see you as a man, they'll see you as a woman. Those women do exist, and they consider themselves to be lesbian because they are attracted to women, either cis or trans, and not to men at all. TERFs do not speak for all lesbians, and they don't speak for all women, although they often claim to. But don't listen to them. You can be you. You can be accepted by sexual partners as who you are. You can find the kinds of relationships you need. You can find love and you can find sexual gratification, and you don't have to surrender such an important part of who you are in order to get there, even if you are pre-HRT and at the very beginning of your journey. I think this is a very important message to put out there. In the midst of so much hatred, ignorance and misinformation, it is so vital that we all stick together and support each other. So, my transgender sisters, brothers and siblings, I reach out to you, my true audience, in a spirit of solidarity, acceptance and love. We're all different, we're all special, snowflakes unite.